Hi everyone. This is just going to be kind of a quick little check-in and answering questions about the upcoming webinar. So if you're not going to go to the webinar, don't waste your time. Go enjoy something, your pets, your food, a walk, because we're going to be specifically talking about the webinar. And I don't want to waste your time. Your time's your most valuable thing. So hi and bye if you need to go do something. Hi. So I'm going to be answering the questions that you put up in I had a little question prompt in the stories. Happy New Year to you guys. Yeah, this is my first live over here on this side. I forgot. I did one over there with the subscription page. Yes, it's so good to see you all. And I'm excited about this nutrition class. It's going to be different. We're going to keep the truth about nutrition up because just like a lot of you said, it's the OG. Did that quite a few years ago, but the medicine is not going to change. So what we're going to do for this upcoming one, it's going to be on the 18th. It's a Saturday to try to kind of help out with scheduling. There's never a good time. Every time has a conflict, and I know that there's time zones. And so the way that I'm going to navigate that is we're just going to do it. This one is not going to have a replay. This one's less of a class, and it's going to be a class, but it's more of a discussion and walking through examples, because a lot of you that have already taken the truth about nutrition have implemented into your lives. And the beauty of that is, like, if you learned about swimming and you never started swimming, you couldn't have the questions that you would have about the technique and the process and the whole experience that you would have if you actually started literally swimming. And so that's going to be what this nutrition class is, because once you start incorporating it, you find, that maybe there's nuance to, if you are happy, but this situation happened at the table. And I know a lot of them are around, if you are living in a household with people that have differing beliefs, people that like the lights different, people that don't live your life as medicine like you do in a very intentional way, or those of you that have kids or are caretakers or work in environments and have to have rushed meals and all of those things where we have different scenarios. And I think now you understand why you can't come and just give a protocol because the unbelievable amount of variations in life and different scenarios in life. But what we're going to do is, I've already had a group of you, if you're over on my subscription page, give me kind of your most challenging scenarios. A lot of them do have to deal with stress, heartbreak, grief, kids, and like different situations where you can't really control it. And so we're going to teach you how to break the rules intelligently, because life is not about being perfect, right? So it's being able to navigate every scenario you're in, no matter what food is available to you. So say all the organic produce was taken and you only have these options, and how would we do it? The only food you have available is, like my experience in the hospital, a piece of processed bologna and a piece of bread, right? And so I want to walk you through how we would think. So it's not going to be medical advice, but I want to walk you through how we think through different scenarios, kind of how I would work with a patient. So if you're a doctor or a practitioner, utilizing those rules of nutrition in your practice, I would highly encourage you to maybe join in on this one so that you can understand the nuance, because I have gotten a little bit of feedback with people not exactly understanding the rules and then being a little bit too rigid with the implementation of that into your life. So the beauty of your life as your medicine and understanding human physiology is that you work with it, and that you can make every moment medicine. And that's the beauty of it. And it gives you complete freedom instead of putting you into different variations of restriction. So when you understand the rules of nutrition, it frees you up in every category, including the food selection, including situations and scenarios where you don't have access to the food that you would typically like to choose, and you're in a healing season, right? Because if you've done the rules, you know that when you're healing, something pretty severe, you're not feeling very well, you're going to have to be more intentional than later on in life, right? You're going to have more flexibility once you've moved through that gritty work of working through different conditions, right? And so that's where, again, there has also been misinformation out there with people utilizing this. I don't think it's maliciously, but to say that food doesn't matter is not true. It's an attention grabber. So it doesn't matter as much as you is what's important. So the rules are what govern the food choices that you're going to choose, but there's no reality where food doesn't matter, right? And so it's how to be intelligent with the decision-making process, how to understand human physiology and digestion, and then understand how to make decisions based off of your mood, your psychological state, your emotional state, your literal state, and what you have access to, right? It's never going to be that you have to have the most perfect foods, the most perfect supplements, and if you don't have those, you can't possibly heal or get better or feel better. And so that's really what that nutrition class did. So then what we're going to do in this one is going to be like, okay, so then here's a scenario. We're going to briefly go over the rules. So for those of you that haven't taken that first nutrition class, I am going to briefly go over the rules. But if you're one of those why people, I'm a why person. Why? Like, why is that a rule? Then that first nutrition class might be the one for you. So those of you that are trying to pick and choose, if you are a why type personality, like why is that the rule? I would take the truth about nutrition class. We talk about the rules and then I teach you how to simply implement them. If you're more of a tell me what to do person, or you already took the first truth about nutrition class and you ran into different snags, or you don't know how to break the rules intelligently in certain scenarios, then this second class is going to be for you, because I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm going to go ahead and give you those rules, but we're not going to go into why. The why is left in that other class. This one's going to be, these are the rules. Let's go crush some scenarios. Let's go talk about if I could put my brain, as a little angel or devil, whatever you want to say, on your shoulder, and be like, every time we make a decision about food, this is how I want you to think. Okay. So that's what we're going to be, is we're going to be like, okay, this is a scenario. So again, if you're a practitioner and you're utilizing those rules of nutrition, this one's going to be very important for you so that you understand different scenarios, because how you would walk somebody through the rules of nutrition that still is currently experiencing what we would call an autoimmune condition, a chronic condition, cancer, anything that is a actual diagnosable condition. You would answer these questions very differently than somebody that's wanting more energy, wanting to improve their overall well-being, wanting to have weight changes. And so it's very important to understand the scenario. That's why, again, this way of living and understanding medicine has to be the individual perspective, not everybody that has X condition needs to eat this. That's not true. It can't be true. And so that's why we have to go into all of these different nuances. And then once you get the hang of it, it's so simple and so easy, right? And, we have those little funny sayings that I even said in the truth about nutrition, like what's going to rot the best, to help keep in your mind the simplicity of, okay, now let's make decisions based off of this. And so that's what this discussion is going to be. It's going to be about 2 hours. I'm going to try to keep it right there, because I do understand that I'm very information dense on purpose, because again, could we space this out in 8 weeks time just to make it feel like you're getting more? Sure. I'm not about that. I understand the psychology of selling. I'm not going to do it. So what it is going to be is exactly to the point, because you should take this and be able to implement it that night or that next meal and see a result. That's how it should work, right? You're of course going to have to accumulate the results to see the drastic changes in your physiology, but you should be able to implement it at the next meal, right? And it should not, and it will not, at least in this one, is never, ever, ever going to be, you need a supplement, you have to go find these foods, you cannot eat these foods. How would we know? Again, the best example I could give you is if all of you came here and were asking me to give you directions to your home, If I said left, right, left, that might work for a handful, would not work for others. It would just be a shot in the dark, but how confidently I told you that would be how much you would try to make it work, right? So the only way to get you back to your home, I have to know where you're at, and I have to know where you live, and then I have to know what terrain we're dealing with and the best, or the route you're willing to take to get there. And so that's what I'm going to help you think through. Remember, we're never telling you what to think. I'm trying to teach you how to think on your own, because that's the one thing that I've noticed that medicine has taken away from people. And then we have people scoop in to think for you. And so if that's your personality type, that's fine. But if it's not, most of you here are here because we have tried it all. And unfortunately or fortunately, it led us astray. Or you just have that different personality of like, I don't want a doctor. I don't want an expert. I don't want a practitioner. I don't want to check in with somebody. I don't want somebody telling me what to do. But I do want to know, and I do want to make intelligent, wise decisions for my health and well-being, because I understand too much to be in blissful ignorance, right? So that's what we're going to really focus on again, is real life scenarios. If this, then this. And I'm going to be taking the scenarios that those of you have given me on the subscription page on that last video. If you haven't done that, I'm definitely going to include all of those. If you have purchased a ticket to the event on the 18th, you can also email me your specific scenario. I can't do like 29 scenarios per person, but give me like the one that like, okay, I was following the rules, or I get through all the rules and then this happens, what do I do? Those real life scenarios. And so again, if you haven't taken the Truth About Nutrition, I'm going to make it a standalone. I'm going to give you those rules. And I think maybe walking through with other people could be helpful, but again, it's just based off of your personality. If you're somebody who wants to be like, but why is that? Then that first class is for you, and this could be an add-on later, especially if you put it into action, and then you start realizing like, okay, I got a question, right? That's kind of how my personality works. Is like, I want to understand it. It has to make sense. I will put it into effect, and then I'm going to figure out, the nuances of it, how it works in my life, how I can dance with it, how it can dance with me. And so again, just because a lot of you have had some very valid scenarios, we're going to literally walk you through those, because again, if you can think through one with me, and then you can think through these others, even if they're not your scenarios, it's going to be very valuable, because then you're going to get to like, maybe you went out on a date and everything was happy, and then somebody said something and it made your whole emotional system clench up, and now you've got a steak in front of you. What do we do? Right? It's like those type scenarios of like, okay, well then what do we do? What are our options? And so that's going to be the practicality of this class, because it's fun and it's funny, but it's also like when you're in those really hard times of healing and you're reacting to so many different things, it's good to have the understanding of, what to expect, what it looks like, what other people go through. Because even me living these rules to even like isolate them and distill them down to be like, okay, so these things absolutely have to be done for me to be able to digest anything. That I literally had to eat my way to being like, these are the most critical pieces that I can identify, and this is how we simplify it, and then this is how we use it, right? And so you're going to be in the art of the utilization of those rules, right? And again, the rules, it's just having to use that word to like be concise with language. It's not, if you don't do this, you don't heal. You'll get in there and you'll realize like, even within that first rule, there's so much to understand, and it all depends on you. And so then you get to that second one, and then you get to the third one, and even like, just being like, are you happy? We got questions about that. I got questions for you, and I'm going to kind of give you these role play things to be like, okay, so if this were me, this is how I would think through it. And this is what I would spend my time thinking about versus, is that salad organic, or is steak healthy? Or, because again, those don't even matter. Like, you will realize how much, I know a lot of you that are here have taken that nutrition class. It's amazing how you hardly ever get to even, is the salad the healthiest salad I could eat? It's like way before then you're doing the work. And that's why I love it too, because it forces you. That's why I said in that comment, like, I have a gut feeling that if we get this, if we understand this, if y'all can really get this, I know that it's going to make you start seeing everything else a little bit differently, right? Because this one's such a big piece. How many times do you eat a day, right? And remember, it's not the food. And there's so many things that go into it. And so when you can see this area that's so big and so polluted, I think it's going to help you see more clearly in all these other areas. But again, we're going to need repetition because we don't have the reps in this area yet. We have the food's important, the soil's important, the quality of food's important. This is important. It's important to stay away from GMO. It's important to stay away from this. And then you get all the way into the like, okay, if you have histamine intolerance, you stay away from this. If you have this, you stay away from this. And then you're just in this, everything is bad, everything is good, maybe, we don't know. And it's just confusion. And again, what I was even stressing in that post today was, if you're fearful of food, and not because you're wrong, but because of, just an average scrolling through of nutrition information, not only are you overwhelmed, you're confused because one person's saying this, one person's saying this. There's research to support all of it. And then if you ask enough questions, there's something wrong with literally everything. Literally everything, okay? And so then when you get to that point, it's just like, do you give up? No, right? You've got to wash out, simplify, clean up, think practically, and the practicality has to be on the level of human physiology, right? Because that's what you're trying to communicate with. That is what you're communicating. That's what's communicating with you, right? And so that being said, that is going to be the discussion, the scenarios, the examples. We're going to briefly touch on those rules because I don't want to just leave you. If you've never taken them, you're going to be like, wait, what is rule number 1? So we're going to be really quick. And then we're going to go into more scenarios, and that's why it's kind of a discussion and less of a masterclass. But we're still going to be the same intensity. Again, you're not going to go and we're not going to talk about me, my life, anything about me. This is about you and digestion and using these rules and understanding how to put them into practice. If you don't know me, then get to know me on Instagram. Don't purchase a class and think that you're going to get to know me or anything like that. You need to resonate with the delivery and then try out the classes. Okay, so I'm going to answer some of these questions. Like I said, if you have more questions, I'm going to put that little prompt back up in the story, and we'll have all of this cleaned up and ready to go by next weekend. And I'm excited about it. Okay, so first question, should we attend part 1 before this? Ideally, yes, because I would want you to be putting it into practice. Because like I said, you can't really come up with a scenario if you've never used it. So it would be like coming up with a scenario of, like a defensive move in basketball or something if you've never actually started playing basketball, right? It's very different if you've actually gotten on the court or gotten into a game and be like, okay, I got questions and I need support, versus I've heard about it, but I don't really know what's going on. So ideally, yes, but no, because I'm also going to make it to where if this was the only class that you can take, we're going to give you massive value because, again, my life is my medicine, so the integrity of what I give medicates me. So I'm never going to dangle anything or give you less than what I could have given you, because I have to sleep with that at night. So it's going to be standalone, but the depth of understanding, of course, is going to be, have you been living those rules, right? And most of you that have taken that first class are the ones that are going to have the scenarios that are going to help everybody who hasn't, basically. And so, no, I'm going to make it to where it can be standalone, but it will enhance it, of course. Lots of questions on that. And then, so all of these treatment type questions, we're not really going to go into. I think if you've taken the first class, you understand that. And if you take the second class, we will use scenarios of I'm, currently healing this, and this is the situation I'm in, but it's never going to be, we really have to get away from the thinking of I have Hashimoto's, what foods do I eat, what foods do I don't eat. I have what they've told me is histamine intolerance, what foods do I eat, what foods do I don't eat. That's what we've got to kind of break up with the thinking. But the way that I like to change thinking is through practical, rational application of truth, okay? It's very important, because to try to force feed the intellect, it's going to be a battle. When you actually incorporate something that's rational, practical, and truthful, it handles all the work of trying to convince your mind. It's like you don't have to be convinced when somebody like genuinely cares about you. You have to be convinced if somebody's pretending like they care about you, right? And so same thing, you don't have to be convinced into the fact that your car works if your car works. So the convincing is going to take care of itself once you understand and start implementing it. If you're a person that just likes to learn, I'm not really that. We have only so much time to live. We don't need to spend our whole life learning. Healing is a promise, so let's act like it even when we're teaching. And let's match it with the intensity of, we're not here to learn about healing, we're here to understand so that we can get back to living, because living is the whole point. So let's not consume a lot of time when we could get something across, give it to you and be like, go try it, go run with it, go taste it, touch it, experiment with it. And then if we have questions, then it's a better use of our time than just thinking through everything. So again, when you use these things, it's going to naturally get rid of that thinking of, if I have this, then I can't eat this. You're going to see how it's like, oh, it's absurd to think that way. But until you've lived it, that makes more sense than anything else. And that's going to work better than not, because you're still doing, like, you're going to have to air quote so many things in that sentence, but that's for a later time. So it's really a living thing that's going to give you the understanding, instead of trying to get the intellectual understanding to convince you to start doing the living thing. Does that make sense? Language. We have to be very intentional with how we use language. Okay. So some of these scenarios I will add into the class, but again, not what we're going to do here, just for time's sake. So date and time again is going to be January 18th at 11 a.m. Pacific. I understand time zones. I understand if you're in different countries. Airplane. So what we're going to do is I'm going to try to get it up to be rented as soon as possible. And because there's just it's never the right time. And I understand that. So my goal is just to do this and be there in person with as many of you that can be there. If you can't be there, it's totally fine. Life is so much more important. It's the whole point. And then this will be there, reposted to rent whenever it actually is convenient for you. So yeah, if you haven't seen the OG nutrition class, you'll still understand, because we're going to make the understanding very brief and potent in the beginning, and then we'll go into it. Yeah, so everything is easy to remember. That's really my goal, because as much as we can, we need to live. If we're always just thinking and studying, we're missing out on what's medicating the body back into vitality. I can't stress that enough. You're not healing while you're learning. You're healing when you are in the application of what was learned. You're healing in the living of the utilization of any wisdom that you gain. So it's never really while you're sitting there learning that we're healing. We're giving you the potential to pull from something in your real life. So when it actually becomes valuable is when you're sitting at the table, then you get in an argument, and instead of just doing what you've always done, you change your behavior. You either change your action, or change the food, right? Because you have so many options. That's the other thing. This gives you more freedom. Just like with that scenario, we're either changing you, we're changing the food, or we're gonna use all the other rules to max those out to overcompensate for the one that you can't meet, right? And so that's really what this is. Okay. And so everything is very easy. I try to make it like either kind of funny, overly ridiculous, or very, 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 very practical and simple, to where it's like, well, of course, right? Well, duh. And then the more you use it, the more it's just like second nature, to where it's not like rule number 1, rule number 2. You just do that quick check, kind of like, do I have my keys? Is my child with me? And is my dog here? And did I shut the door? It's just going to be like this automatic heuristic, if you will, when it comes to eating food. Okay? So yes, I'm reading through stuff. So if I'm looking down, that's what I can move it up. Okay. If you're a patient of mine, you have enough. Especially the sweet person that left this comment. You got enough from the sessions. I promise you. you got more than enough from the sessions. You have everything that you need. You just always have to go back to those basics. Go back to that very, very first document you got and implement it and really pour yourself into the simplicity. Because remember what if I've had a one-on-one with you, we talk about how this simplicity, you're never going to be seduced by simplicity, but it's going to be the foundation of what holds you forever. And if you know my story, the things that helped me when I was at my sickest, after, I don't know, can we say vaccine on here anymore? Are we still in those days? It's been so long. After that whole situation, after the autoimmune situations, after all the incurable stuff, after everything, right? The things that held me when I was at my sickest are the stuff that continues to hold me in different chapters and phases of my life. And that's the beauty of it. So it's never like, oh, I now have gotten my labs back and I now don't have this condition, or I don't have an autoimmune condition, or the cancer is not there anymore, and now I give up living this way. That's not an appropriate way to think, because you're going to create the life that created exactly what you had. So it's changing the life, it's changing the person. So the work is not to go back and be able to survive the conditions that made you sick. Yeah, you could do that, but there's a better way to do it. It should evolve you out of ever wanting to go back, but being resilient enough to be in any scenario, any situation, and that's really what healing in medicine should be, right? Okay. So new info. Some of you are asking if the next class will have new info or just clarification and giving scenarios. There's really not any new info, which is great. I may have different ways of saying it and explaining it, or different patient examples that I could give you, but the rules don't change, which is a really cool thing. And like I said, if y'all are adding comments, I think they'll update in real time. But if I don't get to it, we'll get to it before next weekend. Okay. If you can only do one, again, I think it's your personality type. If you're a why person, like I need to know why you're saying that's a rule, I would take the truth about nutrition. And that class still gives you the practical of how to use it. So you're going to get it all in that one no matter what. This one is going to be a brief, reminder of all the rules, and then a lot of time spent on, because a lot of you were like, well, how do you use the rules to lose weight and all of these different things? When you use the rules, like a lot of you have experienced, I can go back and find, or if you've sent me like a testimony or whatever, just message me and let me know if I can use it or whatever. Of those of you that your goal was not to lose weight, but following the rules had a natural side effect of getting you to just the weight that your body naturally would be. And it was this beautiful thing of like, I didn't even think about it. And that's the point, because the body's so brilliant. The body's not doing something just to spite you. There's a reason behind everything, even weight adaptations or weight gain or weight loss. There's a reason behind all of it, and none of it's to go against you. So, so as far as the Q&A, it's basically going to be a Q&A class. So you can send me, like I said, email me once you purchase your ticket, your scenario. It's not really, I mean, you can ask a question too, of course, but these are more going to be like scenarios, or if you're just like, I can't get past question number 2 because I just don't know how to even troubleshoot what I need to satisfy that answer. We can spend some time there too. And so those type questions, of course, but not, you'll realize that like the questions of like, is meat good for me? You'll be able to answer all of that at the end by yourself, and just see how to think through it. Because really, again, can you think through life? Not do you have to have everybody to think through life for you. It's 2 totally different ways to live, right? Okay. So yeah, we're going to talk about weight gain, excess fat tissue, all of that stuff. We're not treating it, because remember, your body's doing it on purpose. It's a beautiful mechanism, and once you start understanding it, it's like so beautiful. And then the body just adapts and modifies itself based off of literally the conditions it's in and the effects of the causes that you're living. So it's all perfect. Well, you briefly hit on the point of how to know if you aren't digesting. I didn't take part one. You know you aren't digesting if you have literally any gastrointestinal symptoms, if you have any gut symptoms, or even if you have like heart palpitations after eating, anxiety after eating, if you're exhausted after eating, if you have gas, bloating, acid reflux, even skin conditions can kind of be indicators, but most people know when their gut is involved. So when you're not digesting, you'll have, the body will speak to you that you're not. Most people that are digesting have high amounts of energy. They eat, they feel good. They don't get that dip right after having a meal. They don't react to any foods. They eat until they're full. They stop when they're full, and then they don't eat again until they're hungry. And so I think you would already know, because usually if you have any type of gut symptoms, it's because you aren't digesting, because you shouldn't be, is the kicker, not because you're broken. And so when you understand that all the reasons why your body should not be digesting, you're like, oh, touche. Also, my body is badass because how many times did I keep eating when I shouldn't have? And then it had to clean up the mess because I kept breaking those rules, right? I think those are all the questions we have right now. I'm going to scroll through these. If you have any questions right here, again, we're staying just kind of on that topic of this upcoming class next weekend. It's good to see you guys. Oh, hi, Mom. My mom and dad are here. Okay. Yeah, longer classes and longer, like spreading everything out so far away, and like, because I could make, literally, if you take in like the nutrition class, or even if you go to this class next weekend, you'll see that I could split this information up over 8 weeks, 4 weeks, and charge for each, but we would waste life. Because if I could tell you it all in 2 hours on one day and you could use it by the next meal, I feel like we've accomplished more than giving you a little bit here, like rule number 1 this week, rule number 2. I mean, we could do that if that would enhance that for you. But again, I just want it to be like, what if I, wasn't alive tomorrow? Did I give them everything I could have gotten, or was I spacing it out? Like, there's a difference between like spacing it out for a deeper understanding. I'd be available for that if enough people wanted that. But again, if I could have given you everything that would have changed your gut in 1 2-hour session, just with the intensity of me, matching the intensity of your receptivity, then to me, I feel like we've accomplished more, because you've got to understand, it depends on what the intention behind the class is. If the intention is, a business thing, we would structure it very differently than if our intention is to not waste time. Because you've got to think about, like, the whole point is your time. We give away time too easily. That's why I even started this like I did. If you're not interested in this, let's not waste our time, because your time is the only reason you want to heal. Your time is the only reason you even want to feel good. Why? To enjoy your time. So again, it has to be in alignment for me that I'm not wasting your time because I could fluff the information, or I could draw it out. Usually what I put on myself is, how can we make this as simple as possible, as complete as possible, as digestible as possible, and deliver it as quickly as possible. And that's kind of how my brain works, unless, that is just too much for you, and I understand that too, and that's fair. But I also just don't want to space things out if we could accomplish the same thing in 2 hours that we could space out in 8 weeks. Again, there is a difference between, if we took each step and I could go into deeper, but I think that would be more like a practitioner thing. I mean, it could be the individual too, because a lot of you are the self-healing type. But y'all will have to give me feedback on that. If y'all want less dense and more spaced out, I would be available, but I would still want the intensity of the information. I want to accomplish something, because it's also me giving my time, and I like to feel like, even like when we do something like this, that your time wasn't wasted, and maybe 3 sentences I said, or 5, or a minute, or 5 minutes, touched something in you, changed something in you, reminded you of something in you, to where it changed the rest of your day, or changes you tomorrow, or comes up when you're overwhelmed or stressed, or when you're going through an emergency. Or so again, we would have to meet and match on intention behind the time and the information given. But I would be more than willing to go deeper and deeper and deeper, because it's infinitely deep. But I like to just, how much can we give you to change your life in the shortest amount of time as possible? Because again, time is more valuable than money. Time is more valuable than anything. The whole reason anybody even cares about doctors or medicine or healing is what? Time. So let's not waste it. Let's not waste it. Okay? Does that make sense? I think I went a little further on that, but I'm always willing to do more. But I like results, and I like it to be like, the less we can think about food and the more we can enjoy food with friends and experiencing and travel and playing, and then I feel like we've accomplished something, because that's the whole point. Food is such a beautiful thing. There's no need to pollute it with fear. Because think about how many things you haven't even tasted yet. Like, isn't that a crazy thing? So many things, and there's so many favorite flavors you don't even know that you have yet. Yeah, hi to my parents. I love them so much. Okay, so any questions before I wrap up on this for today? And again, absolutely give me feedback if y'all would rather have less dense, more spread out, because the information is really for you. As long as it's making an impact, I'm willing to modify my delivery, because I'm kind of like fire hydrant. I do know that. But your life, I cannot get past the fact that if I consumed 24 hours of your time and I could have accomplished exactly that in 2, the return on your investment is so much greater if I can be efficient and effective. And if I can't be efficient and effective, then it's up to me to get better at what I do. Like, how can we change you the quickest? Why? That's the whole point. I mean, if we were friends and hanging out and using time just because it's beautiful and like having conversation and communion and all that, that's totally different. If it's a medical, if I'm providing a service, then I need to consume the least amount of your time, because that's your most valuable thing. That's just how my brain, that I don't know that I'll ever stop thinking that way. All at once. There's some like all-in type people too. I get that. 2 fire hydrant, maybe. You know. I did a neurological scan one time, and they were like, your level of focus is dangerous. They were like, I would be very afraid if you were like crossing the street and you saw a puppy, because you probably wouldn't see anything else. I'm like, but I will use it as a superpower. All right. Okay, good. I'm glad that's making sense. And for those of you that are saying a little less dense, more spread out, I can find maybe a different way, or you can kind of give me what you're thinking, because I understand there's different ways to learn too. No wasting time. Yeah. Just really, really refocus. Maybe if you didn't get anything out of this, or you were just here to kind of hang out with us, pay attention to your time. And like, if you put like a dollar amount, like in the millions on every minute, that's how I would want you to start thinking about your time, and then thinking about who's consuming your time and what you're actually getting from the time that they consume. Because again, if something's consuming your time, that's why I say distraction is so dangerous. And just mindless, you know, if we talk about empty calories, think about how many empty calories of information you consume in an average week to distract away from the things that you actually need to change in your life, because the things you actually need to change in your life are going to make you a little bit uncomfortable, right? So again, I would baby step my way out of distracting away and really, you know, get intentional and gritty, because you've got to pay attention to how the world works too. If the whole world is trying to get your attention, what's valuable? So keep your attention, keep your focus, keep your time. If everyone's wanting your time, if everyone, like, pay attention to how many, just for an example, not that it's all bad, but I even noticed just like logging on here today, how many things about the California fires, and then you go look at it and it has nothing to do with the actual person, but they needed to grab your attention with something catastrophic that has nothing to do with them, turn it into some emotional something, and then have something on the other end. So you've got to start being able to see in this time, see truly, and then see that your time is more valuable than anything. More valuable than literally anything. And then start having kind of that personality that's like, how can I understand this the quickest? How can I gain this information? Instead of that mentality, I'll come back and rewatch. I'll save it and come back. I'll read that later. You're never going to benefit from it. You're never going to benefit, but that's what we're training into you of. You can always come back. You can rewatch a million times, save it, come back, binge. How can I get your attention? You've got to look at your health of like, if somebody wastes my time, they're wasting the reason I wanted my health. So then that doesn't make any sense. And then you've got to be very intentional and very protective over your time. Like, and then if you get a benefit from the time that you spent, go get a return on the investment by putting it into your life. We should be living more than we're on these things. And we should be living more than we're learning. And you definitely should be living more than you learn about healing, because you're healing anyways. And you would actually learn more about healing if you stopped learning about it. That's what I learned by going to medical school and getting certified in literally everything, and every type of medicine and every type of IV and laser was that exact thing. It was a lot of empty freaking calories and not much truth, unfortunately. Okay. All right, so if you gain something here, use it. If that class is going to benefit you, make sure it's going to benefit you. Don't just show up to consume time. Literally a walk would be a better investment of your time. But if it would help you to understand, if you're a practitioner, because I know a lot of you ask some questions. I think if you're a practitioner, definitely go to the second class, because it's going to help you understand different people, different scenarios, and why you would have to answer differently, and what to really start considering, especially if you're a practitioner and teaching this to people. And then if you are just an individual that's trying to declutter your mind and really let this sink into your bones and start being incorporated into your thinking and move out all that other food and nutrition information, I think it would be helpful for you as well. And then those of you that I'm doing it because y'all are the ones that told me to do it. You already know. But I would live it. If you took the first class and you haven't lived it yet, live it first before you take this next one. Don't take the next one if you're not even living what you already took, right? That's how I want you thinking. Be like, well, we'll do it. And then maybe you wouldn't have the questions even, or maybe you would have different questions. So if you took the first one and you aren't using it, don't take the second one. Use the first one. Okay? If you took the first one, you've used it, you've implemented it, you're basically living that way, but then you come into places where you're like, I don't know what to do, and you just throw in the towel, or you go back to like restrictive thinking, or only eat or panic because it wasn't organic, or start getting worried, and then you're worried shuts off your appetite, and then you just don't even know what to do. That's what this class is for, because that was part of my experience with it too. The illusions class is something different for those of you asking for that. I still have that as a little gift for right now. It was actually one of the first classes that I did. Enjoy the ocean walk. And it's really to help you start thinking differently, the illusions classes, because once you start seeing the truth about a lot of things and you destroy those illusions, the things that are valuable only because you believe in an illusion will just, again, naturally take care of themselves. And so that's what I love about truth, is you're not going to have to force feed belief. It just naturally takes care of everything that could only exist if you were misinformed, right? So just think about that. Think about being in a situation where a lie makes you need a lot of things and makes you overwhelmed and makes you fearful of everything, and then the truth could neutralize all of that in one moment. It's not going to be like, I have to go fight against this and this and this. No, one truth can get rid of all of that. But I will say again, with the illusions class, when you get rid of illusions, you also get rid of the illusion of somebody or some industry or something out there that can save you. And that's the discomfort of the information in that class. Is liberation is not a comfortable thing. Freedom doesn't make you feel secure, right? Often you're massively free when you feel massively insecure. So again, think about the world that we're in. Comfort, conformity, somebody telling you what to do, how to do it, this is how I do it how I do it. It seems helpful, but it's also a trap, right? So true freedom is true wellness, is being able to live on that edge of life, being like, nobody's pointing the direction, nobody's telling me what to eat. I know how to feel what I feel in my body. I know how to make decisions based off of where I'm at. Like that's medicine. Everything else is manipulation. If we could change those two words, I think we would start understanding it all a little bit more. And again, if you're using manipulation-based medicine, it's not wrong. It works because everything has an effect. So there's a reason Advil and Tylenol work. Does it truly get rid of pain? Absolutely not. We all know that. So the fact that it has an effect isn't the conversation. Everything has an effect, right? But if a true medicine frees you from even needing anything, right? And so that's really where you're at, again, in this little bizarre, wonderful smiley bubble over here. Nothing is wrong and nothing is bad. It's just, again, how do you want to live your life? How much reliance do you want to have on you? How much reliance do you want to have on things external to you? And then what beautiful random combination are you going to do it? And some of you, again, if you're here, the reason we seem extreme is because you can heal without all of it. And it's not extreme, it's true. But that doesn't mean that's the only way to do it. It's everything is a spectrum, right? Just like we talked about in that nutrition class. So again, if you're somebody who's like, well, I don't want to change what needs to change to have to get off of bioidentical hormones, then hell yeah, keep them. Or if you're like, I want this, but I don't want this, that's the beauty. That's also freedom. But it's when you think that you have to have the pill, you think that you have to have the practitioner, you think that you have to have the hospital, you think that you have to have in order to be okay, in order to heal, that is not true. So that's more the conversation here, and the more we can give language to it, the more it'll make sense. And there's confusion because other people take the message and share it in their perspective, and it's not necessarily exactly what is intended. But the point is just, we're here to show you can do it without any of it, because that's your design and that's how freaking phenomenal you are. But if you want to pick and choose because you want to pick and choose, that's still you being free, right? So there's no wrong way to do it. But the trap is to think that you need those things or you won't heal, or you have to eat a perfect diet or you won't heal, or you'll never get rid of that condition, or that type of thinking is very, very dangerous, because it's not true. And you could disprove it within 3 research articles. You could disprove it with 1, right? If you're one of those that likes information. My kiddo, he's 7 months. Hey, he's gigantic. I always wanted a horse. Now I have this little guy. All right, any questions before we wrap up? And like I said, I'll put up the prompt again up in the stories about the class coming up next Saturday. I'm excited to start doing these because I think, we do need repetition. His name's Checo. Yeah. He's a sweetie. I know y'all have seen some of the other lives where he was like knocking the door down. We are improving and we are so smart. We had a little experience in the lake the other day. His first experience learning not to breathe water. So that was fun to watch. But now we know. He literally was like in the middle of the lake sinking. And I was walking with my boyfriend like, I think my dog doesn't realize that that's not air. But he's adorable. He's actually a really, really like protective. It's like really cool to see dogs in their nature. If you have a dog, you know what I'm talking about, or even a cat, right? Billy has his nature too. But I've gotten a lesson on just like when something is literally in their blood, and what a beautiful thing that is. Like to get him out of his nature, you would have to do so much manipulation. But to be able to support him in his nature is what makes him amazing. Okay, I actually like that question, so I'm going to answer it. If you can only financially afford a cup of soup to eat, can you still heal? I'd have to ask you. Right? Of course. Of course. Okay, I did see that question. So with this question that you just put up, your 13-year-old daughter with restrictive eating patterns, and she's losing weight, and she still restricts food. So when you're dealing with a kid, we're not going to go into too much here on this. This needs to be a different conversation. This is not medical advice. I don't know you. I don't know your kid. This is just something to chew on. When it comes to a kid, I would deal with the life first before there's a reason she's controlling through food, right? And so you're not really wanting to focus too much on the food when it comes to a kid. You want to focus on what you know as a parent, or what you can identify as a parent of what's going on in the life that is making her use that as medicine, right? That's a bigger conversation. So maybe don't do the nutrition class, because to teach in a state like that, the education that's needed is not technical nutrition, physiology, biochemistry. The teaching that she's needing is life, and probably just her and her mom first and foremost is where I would start. There's a huge conversation there, but kids should not be going. It's different if, I know a lot of you, the kids just listen in the background. Absolutely love that. Let's saturate them with the power of them. But we should not, I don't believe, this is just me, we should not be putting in their heads that they need to learn all of this stuff. I think giving them truth and demonstrating that through how you guys live and being the active example, and if they have questions for you, you guys answer. But I don't think I would put a kid through my class. Maybe another class. Maybe we do a class for kids where it's a little bit different. But my delivery is specifically targeted to undo indoctrination, right? And to liberate. So the parent, I think, would be the best source of education for a child, especially when it comes to food. And they're going to watch, like, okay, they're not afraid of food, and these are the rules of how my body works. Let me watch their actions and see if they're telling the truth. Let me feel how I feel when, there's a cake in front of us and see if they're telling the truth, right? So that's always where I worked. I did take pediatric patients for a little bit, but a lot of you already know that the parents are a part of the child's physiology. And so until we addressed the parents, we couldn't change the kid to completion. And then when I flipped it and I started only seeing the parents before I would see the kids, I never had to see any of the kids. That's how powerful parents are. So take that into consideration. Not really a kid class. They need you. And if you need this information, it coming through you will be so much more valuable. All right, thank you all for being here. I'm going to repost this. Again, if you have any questions, we'll put them up in the stories. I'll answer those before we do our hangout next weekend. And yeah, I agree. And yeah, thank you for being here. Go use your time. It's the whole reason you want to heal.